The gunshots still echoed in my ears as I stumbled into the alley. Heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Everyone had warned me about Julian Voss Ruthless. Cold. A man who'd built an empire on secrets and blood, but no one told me how his touch could unravel me in seconds. Now, with my back pressed against the damp brick wall, his shadow loomed over me, and I wasn't sure if I was running from danger or straight into his arms. New York City was a beast of its own, all sharp edges and flickering neon. But Julian was its king. At 32, he owned half the underground clubs, controlled deals that made cops look the other way, and had a reputation that sent shivers down spines. I'd heard the stories. The man who'd stared down a rival and walked away from a burning warehouse without a scratch. The one who'd broken bones over unpaid debts without blinking. My friends, my familithede all begged me to stay away when I took a job at his upscale bar, the Obsidian. 6 months ago. Elliot, my sister had hissed, grabbing my arm. He's a monster. You'll get burned. But I was 25, broke, and stubborn, chasing a dream of writing music in a city that chewed up dreamers like me. I didn't listen. The first time I met Julian, I spilled whiskey on his $1,000 suit. I was bartending, nervous under the weight of his gaze, those piercing gray eyes that seemed to see through skin and bone. I braced for anger, but he just laughed, low and smooth, and said, "Keep the change, kid." That night, he slipped a $100 tip into my hand, his fingers brushing mine long enough to make my breath catch. It was the start of something I couldn't name, something that grew in stolen glances across crowded rooms, in the way he'd linger at the bar after closing, asking about my songs with a softness no one else ever saw. By the time we kissed, 3 months later, in the back room of the Obsidian with jazz humming through the walls, I was already half in love. He was magnetic, dangerous. Yes, but also careful, deliberate, like he was holding back a storm just for me. "Your trouble," he'd murmured against my lips, but his hands were gentle, tracing my jaw like I was something precious. We kept it secret, meeting in shadows, because Julian had enemies, and I was a liability. But when he proposed, 2 months ago, in a quiet park under a sky full of stars, I said yes without hesitation. The warnings didn't matter. I saw the man behind the myth. Now, though, as I crouched in that alley, the weight of those warnings crashed over me. It was supposed to be a simple night dinner at our favorite hole-in-the-wall diner, just the two of us. But Julian had gotten a call, his face darkening as he listened. "Stay here," he'd said, leaving me with my fries and a sinking feeling. Minutes later, I'd heard the shots, seen figures moving in the dark, and bolted, my phone buzzing with Julian's text, "Run. Don't look back." So I ran, straight into this alley, where he found me. "Elliot." His voice was a low growl, but his hands were soft as he pulled me to my feet. Blood speckled his shirt, but he didn't seem hurt. "You okay?" I nodded, throat tight. "What's happening?" "Julian." He didn't answer, just scanned the alley, his jaw tight. "We need to move. Now." We slipped through the city like ghosts, weaving through back streets until we reached his penthouse in Manhattan. The place was a fortress, steel doors, tinted windows, a view that stretched over the glittering chaos below. Inside, Julian shed his jacket, revealing a holster strapped to his chest. My stomach twisted. This was the man I'd married, The one who hummed my songs in the shower, who left notes on my pillow. But this was also the man who carried a gun, who moved like he expected a fight. "Talk to me," I said, my voice shaking. "Who's after you?" "After us." He crossed the room, stopping inches from me. His hands found my shoulders, steadying me. "It's an old debt," he said finally. "Someone I crossed years ago. They saw you with me tonight. They know you're my weakness." My heart stuttered. "Your weakness?" His eyes softened, the storm in them calming. "You're everything, Elliot. I'd burn this city down to keep you safe." I wanted to believe him, but fear gnawed at me. The world saw Julian as a predator, untouchable. But I saw the cracks, the way his hands trembled slightly as he poured me a glass of water, the way he kept glancing at the door. I'd married a man who lived in two worlds, and I was caught between them. As we stood there, the city humming beyond the windows, I realized I didn't care about the danger. Not really. I cared about him, about the way he looked at me like I was his anchor, about the promises we'd made in the dark. But the night wasn't over, and the shadows outside were closing in. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the penthouse windows, but it couldn't touch the chill in my bones. Julian was already up, standing by the kitchen counter, his phone pressed to his ear, speaking in clipped, low tones. I caught fragments. "Find him. No mistakes. Keep it quiet," and my stomach knotted tighter. I'd slept fitfully, dreaming of gunshots and Julian's face, blood-streaked and fierce. Now, watching him move with that predator's grace, I wondered how much I really knew about the man I loved. He hung up and turned, catching my gaze. "You're up," he said, his voice softer now, meant just for me. He crossed the room and handed me a coffee, his fingers brushing Minea deliberate, grounding touch. "I'm sorry about last night." "Sorry doesn't explain it," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Who's after us?" "Julian. And don't give me half answers." He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. For a moment, he looked less like the king of New York's underworld and more like a man carrying too much. "His name's Victor Kane," he said. "We were partners. Years ago. Built this empire together. But he got greedy. Reckless. I cut him out. And he's been waiting for a chance to hit back." I set the coffee down, untouched. "And I'm the chance." Julian's eyes darkened. "He knows hurting you would break me." The weight of that settled over me, heavy and cold. I wasn't just a target, I was leverage. I wanted to scream, to demand why he hadn't told me sooner. But then he stepped closer, his hand cupping my cheek. "I'll fix this, Elliot. I swear." I leaned into his touch, torn between fear and the warmth of his promise. "How?" I whispered. He didn't answer, just pulled me into his arms, holding me like I was the only thing keeping him steady. For a moment, we were just us, no guns, no enemies, just two men who'd found each other in a city that didn't care. But the moment broke when his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening. "I have to go," he said. "Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone." "Julian, trust me," he said. And then he was gone, leaving me alone in a fortress that felt more like a cage. Hours passed, each one heavier than the last. I tried to distract myself strumming my guitar, scribbling lyrics about love and danger, but the silence of the penthouse pressed in. By afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my jacket and slipped out, ignoring Julian's warning. I needed air. Needed to feel like I wasn't just a piece in someone else's game. The city was alive, pulsing with honking cabs and chattering crowds. But I felt eyes on me. A man in a black coat lingered too long at a crosswalk. A car slowed as it passed. Paranoia. Maybe. But Julian's world was bleeding into mine. I ducked into a coffee shop, my hands shaking as I ordered a latte I didn't want. That's when I saw Hermie's sister, Lena, sitting in a corner booth, her eyes wide as she spotted me. Elliot. She rushed over, grabbing my arm. What the hell are you doing out here? I heard about last night. Everyone's talking about it. Julian's enemies are circling. How do you even know that? I snapped, pulling away. Because I'm not blind, she said. You married a man who lives in the dark, and now you're caught in it. Come home with me. You don't have to do this. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. That Julian was more than the rumors. But doubt crept in. Had I been naive, thinking love could shield us from his past? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. You're not as safe as you think. Tell Julian to pay up, or you're next. My blood ran cold. I showed Lena the text, and her face paled. Elliot, this is serious. You need to get out of here. But I couldn't run. Not from Julian. Not from the life we'd chosen. I left the coffee shop, ignoring Lena's protests, and headed back to the penthouse. When I got there, Julian was waiting, his face a mask of fury and fear. You left, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Do you have any idea what could have happened? I'm not a prisoner, Julian. I shot back. I can't just sit here while you fight a war I don't understand. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip tight, but not painful. You think I want this? I'm trying to keep you alive. Elliot. Kane's men are everywhere. They know where you are. I showed him the text, and his expression hardened. This ends tonight, he said, pulling out his phone. I'm done hiding. As he made calls, barking orders to men I'd never met, I saw the ruthless side everyone had warned me about, calculated, unyielding. But when he hung up and looked at me, his eyes were soft again, full of a love that made my chest ache. I'll come back to you, he promised. Always. I wanted to believe him, but as he walked out into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. Night fell over New York like a curtain, heavy and final. I paced the penthouse, the city's glow taunting me through the windows. Julian had been gone for hours, and every creak of the building made my heart lurch. I clutched my phone, willing it to ring, but it stayed silent. The text from earlier burned in my mind. Tell Julian to pay up, or you're next. I wasn't just scared for myself, I was terrified for him. The man who'd built a life on control, but was risking it all for me. When the door finally opened, I spun around, relief flooding me until I saw Julian's face. His lip was split, blood streaking his jaw, and his shirt was torn. But his eyes were alive, fierce with something I couldn't read. It's over, he said, his voice rough. Kane's gone. I rushed to him, my hands shaking as I touched his face. What happened? Are you hurt? He caught my wrists, gentle despite the storm in his gaze. I'm fine. It's done. He pulled me close, his breath warm against my forehead. I faced him. Elliot. No more running. He told me in fragments how he'd tracked Victor Kane to an abandoned warehouse. How they'd fought. Not just with fists, but with years of betrayal and rage. Julian hadn't killed him. He didn't need to. He'd outsmarted Kane, turning his own men against him with evidence of Kane's double-dealing. The empire Julian had built was his again, but at a cost. I'm stepping back, he said, his voice low. No more deals. No more blood. I want a life with you. Not this. I stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. Can you even do that? Just walk away. For you. I'd do anything. He smiled, tired but real, and kissed me, soft and slow, like we had all the time in the world. But I knew better. Men like Julian didn't just leave the game followed them. Days turned into weeks, and Julian kept his promise. He sold the obsidian, cut ties with his old life, and we moved to a quiet brownstone in Brooklyn. It was strange, seeing him in sweatshirts instead of suits, trading late-night deals for mornings, cooking breakfast with me. But the past didn't let go easily. Whispers followed "you sold associates," lingering threats. One night, I found a note slipped under our door. You can't hide forever. I showed it to Julian, expecting him to shut down, to slip back into that ruthless mask. Instead, he took my hand and led me to the rooftop, where the city sparkled below us. They can try to scare us, he said, his voice steady. But they don't know what we have. And what's that? I asked, my heart pounding. He turned to me, his gray eyes soft in the moonlight. Each other. That's enough. We stood there, wrapped in each other, the city's chaos fading into the background. I thought of the warnings, the fear, the nights I'd doubted him. But I also thought of the man who'd fought for me, who'd chosen me over power, who showed me a love I'd never known was possible. The world might see Julian Voss as ruthless, but I saw the truth, a man who'd rewritten his story for us. Years later, we'd build a life messy, imperfect, but ours. I'd write songs about love and redemption, and Julian would listen, his hand in mine, his gentle side no longer a secret. The threats faded, the shadows retreated, and we became something stronger than the warnings, something no one could take away. Love, I learned, wasn't just a feeling, it was a choice, a fight, a promise kept in the quiet moments when the world wasn't watching.